Despite only having a career that lasted just over 4 years, Jimi Hendrix completely changed the way electric guitars were played and left an indelible mark on rock history. But what made Hendrix such an immortal icon? Why is his death at the age of 27 still controversial to this day? Discover the tumultuous life of Jimi Hendrix in this video. Don't forget to leave a comment about your favorite song of his. Childhood and early life. Jimi Hendrix was born Johnny Allen Hendrix on November 27, 1942, in Seattle, Washington. However, when he was just a few years old, his father, Al Hendrix, changed his name to James Marshall Hendrix, inspired by his younger brother, Leon Marshall. Jimi grew up in a difficult family. His parents, Al Hendrix and Lucille Hendrix, had a tumultuous marriage with constant arguments, separations, and reunions. They struggled financially, forcing the family to move frequently. As children, Jimi and his younger brother, Leon Hendrix, had an unstable childhood, even being sent to live with relatives or in an orphanage. In 1958, tragedy struck when his mother, Lucille, died of cirrhosis of the liver at the age of 32. Jimi was 15 years old at the time and suffered a great mental shock. Instead of attending the funeral, his father took the two brothers out drinking to teach them how to be men. This was one of the defining moments of Jimi's personality, a sensitive person who always hid his pain in music. Despite his difficult circumstances, Jimi Hendrix showed a special passion for music from a young age. When he did not have a real guitar, the young Jimi often used a broom to pretend to play the guitar and imagine himself performing in front of a crowd. When he grew up, he carried a broom everywhere, as if it were a real guitar, to the point that a teacher at school suggested that his parents buy him a guitar to satisfy his passion. Jimi Hendrix's journey to music began when he was strongly influenced by the great blues and rock and roll artists. He often listened to the music of B.B. King, Muddy Waters, Robert Johnson, Howlin' Wolf, and Chuck Berry, all of whom inspired him to develop his unique guitar-playing style. 1957. At the age of 50, Jimi received his first instrument, but it wasn't a guitar, but a single-string ukulele, which he found in a trash heap. Despite having only one string, Jimi tried to play Elvis Presley songs by ear, practicing constantly. 1958, a year later, his father bought him his first acoustic guitar for $5. With no one to teach him, Jimi taught himself entirely by watching other artists play, listening to songs on the radio, and imitating them. This was when he developed his signature playing style, using his ear to feel the music rather than reading sheet music. 1959. Jimi finally got his first electric guitar, a Supro Ozark. But there was one big problem. Jimi was left-handed, and the guitar was right-handed. Unable to afford a new guitar, Jimi flipped the instrument upside down and learned to play it left-handed, a technique that would become his trademark. It was also during this time that Jimi began playing in local bands. First the Velvetones, but they quickly disbanded. Then he joined the Rocking Kings, who gave Jimi his first live performances. While Jimi's talent was beginning to shine, he still had a long way to go before he became the greatest guitar legend of all time. A breakthrough music career. In 1961, at the age of 19, Jimi Hendrix faced a major turning point in his life. After being caught driving a stolen car twice, Jimi was faced with a choice: go to jail or enlist in the United States Army. He decided to join the 101st Airborne Division in hopes of finding a new direction in his life. However, military life did not suit Jimi. He felt constrained, had no passion for the military, and was often judged by his superiors as lazy, daydreaming, and unfocused. He spent much of his free time playing guitar instead of adhering to military discipline. During his service, he befriended fellow bassist Billy Cox, and the two played music together regularly. sowing the seeds of Jimi's professional musical career. However, after about 13 months, Jimi injured his ankle during parachute training and was discharged in June 1962. After leaving the army, Jimi decided to focus entirely on music. He began performing in small clubs and became a sideman for many famous artists, such as Little Richard, who had a big influence on Jimi's performance style. However, Jimi was fired for dressing too flashily, which Little Richard was not happy with. The Isley Brothers. He played guitar for this band for a short time, contributing to the group's energetic sound. King Curtis, a famous saxophonist, helped Jimi gain more experience playing live music. Although he still had no chance to shine, this was an important period for Jimi to hone his skills, develop his style, and learn from contemporary blues and rock artists. In 1966, while performing in New York, Jimi caught the eye of Chas Chandler, a former member of the Animals. Chandler, who was looking for new talent to produce music, immediately recognized Hendrix's potential. Chas Chandler decided to become Jimi's manager and took him to England, where the rock was thriving with names like the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, and Eric Clapton. In England, Jimi Hendrix formed the Jimi Hendrix Experience with Noel Redding, assistant. Originally a guitarist, but Jimi convinced him to play bass to fit the group. Mitch Mitchell, excellent drummer with a jazz-influenced style, helping to create a unique, rhythmic foundation. With this lineup, they quickly created a revolution in rock music. In 1967, the group released their debut album, Are You Experienced? One of the greatest debut albums in rock history. The album contains a series of classic songs, such as Purple Haze, an icon of psychedelic rock music with a haunting melody and mysterious lyrics. Hey Joe, a cover that made Jimi's name far and wide, telling the story of a man on the run after shooting his wife. And The Wind Cries Mary, a gentle but emotional ballad, said to be inspired by an argument between Jimi and his girlfriend. This album was not only a commercial success, but also changed the way people viewed electric guitars. Jimi Hendrix became a global phenomenon, hailed as one of the best guitarists of all time. In 1968, Jimi Hendrix continued to create and release the album Electric Ladyland, considered the pinnacle of his career. This album includes legendary songs such as Voodoo Child, Slight Return, one of the most outstanding guitar performances in history, with powerful riffs and mesmerizing solos. All Along the Watchtower, a cover of Bob Dylan, but transformed by Jimi into a completely new work, to the point that Dylan himself admitted to liking Jimi's version better. During this time, Hendrix not only achieved musical success, but was also known for his explosive, improvisational performance style, from burning his guitar on stage to playing it with his teeth or behind his back, tricks never seen before in the rock music world. One of the most memorable moments in Jimi Hendrix's career was at the Woodstock Festival in 1969, where he performed the Star-Spangled Banner, the American national anthem, on electric guitar. He transformed the sound of the national anthem into the sounds of falling bombs, exploding bullets, and helicopter engines, a haunting reflection of the Vietnam War. This was not only a skillful performance, but also had deep political meaning, making Jimi honored as an anti-war icon. After the Jimi Hendrix Experience disbanded, Jimi continued to seek new directions in music. In 1970, he formed the Band of Gypsies with Billy Cox, bass, a close friend from his military days. Buddy Miles, drums, a drummer with a strong funk style. The style of this group was influenced by funk, blues, and soul, completely different from the Jimi Hendrix Experience. The band had some successful shows, but unfortunately, Jimi Hendrix's journey did not last long. Personal life. Although he never married, Jimi Hendrix had many romantic relationships throughout his short life. One of the most important women in his life was Kathy Etchingham, his longtime lover and the inspiration for many of his songs. Kathy Etchingham was a British DJ who met Jimi Hendrix in 1966 in London. Jimi had just arrived in England and was not yet famous. The two quickly became a couple and moved into a small flat on Brook Street, London, once the home of legendary composer George Friedrich Handel. Kathy played an important role in Jimi's life, supporting him through his difficult early years. Their relationship was passionate but also stormy, with heated arguments but also inseparable. The song "The Wind Cries Mary" is said to have been inspired by an argument between them when Kathy got angry and left. Mary was her middle name, and Jimi wrote this song shortly after she left. However, by 1969, as Jimi's career became too busy and his lifestyle became increasingly out of control due to drugs and alcohol, their relationship began to fall apart. Kathy decided to break up, leaving a big void in Jimi's life. In addition to Kathy, Jimi had many other relationships with famous and beautiful women, including Devon Wilson, a mysterious woman in the rock world who had a strong influence on Jimi's life, but also dragged him into the world of drugs and partying, and Monica Dannemann, the last woman to be with Jimi before his death. Although he served in the US military, Jimi Hendrix did not support war, especially the Vietnam War. This view was expressed not only through his words, but also through his music and lifestyle. He often expressed his anti-war views in interviews, saying that war is senseless, and that people should love each other instead of destroying each other. One of Jimi's most powerful anti-war moments was when he performed the Star-Spangled Banner at Woodstock in 1969. He altered the sound of his guitar to simulate the sounds of bombs, helicopters, and screams, a silent but powerful protest against the war. This performance shocked and moved audiences and became one of the most prominent anti-war symbols of the era. Jimi Hendrix was not a political activist, but his music carried a message of peace and freedom, sympathetic to the hippie and anti-war movements of the 1960s. In addition to his music, Jimi Hendrix also made a strong impression with his colorful fashion style, deeply influenced by hippie culture and the psychedelic movement of the 60s. The prominent features of Jimi Hendrix's style include the hussar-style military jacket inspired by the Victorian period, colorful silk shirts, often with bright patterns and colors, flared pants, popular in 60s fashion, accessories such as scarves, necklaces, rings, headbands, with a strong bohemian style, high-top leather boots, often combined with tight pants. Jimi Hendrix was not only a music legend, but also a fashion icon, with his style heavily influencing later artists such as Prince, Lenny Kravitz, and even the modern vintage fashion movement. And here's something interesting about Jimi. He loved the British and often shopped at famous London stores such as Granny Takes a Trip and Kleptomania. When Jimi Hendrix's career reached its peak in the late 1960s, he became one of the greatest and most influential artists in music. However, the spotlight came with enormous pressure, which made his life increasingly stressful. Personal problems. Despite being a musical legend, Jimi Hendrix faced many pressures from fame, public expectations, and personal stress. When his career reached its peak, his busy schedule with constant touring around the world left him exhausted. Not only that, the record company always urged Jimi to produce new music, even though he felt he did not have enough time to create as he wanted. In addition, a strained relationship with two members of the band, the Jimi Hendrix Experience, Noel Redding and Mitch Mitchell, also left him isolated. Although he was on stage and performed energetically, when he returned to his normal life, Jimi was a quiet, contemplative person, often lost in thought about life and music. To cope with those pressures, Hendrix gradually fell into alcohol and drugs, a double-edged sword that devastated many artists at that time. At first, He only used them as a way to relax at lavish parties with the rock world. But over time, his substance abuse became increasingly out of control. LSD, marijuana, and strong alcohol became a familiar part of Jimmy's life, sometimes affecting his performance. Those close to him recounted that there were nights when he stayed up all night just to compose while high on drugs, then felt tired and exhausted the next day. Although he still created musical masterpieces, Hendrix's health gradually declined. These consequences not only affected his body, but also made him disoriented, depressed, and sometimes mentally unstable. This was also one of the factors leading to his tragic death at the age of 27, when his career was still unfinished. Mysterious death. On September 18, 1970, Jimi Hendrix, the greatest guitar genius in the history of rock music, suddenly passed away in London, England, at the age of 27. His death was not only a great loss to the world music industry, but also became one of the most mysterious cases in rock history, with countless theories, controversies, and details that have never been fully clarified. According to the official autopsy report, the cause of Jimi Hendrix's death was asphyxiation after inhaling his vomit while unconscious due to excessive use of sleeping pills. The report indicated that he had taken at least 9 Vesperac sleeping pills, a very strong drug, while only 1 or 2 pills are enough to cause drowsiness that lasts all night. Hendrix's girlfriend at the time, Monica Dannemann, was the last person to see him alive. According to Monica's testimony, the night before, Hendrix had been talking normally and showed no signs of anything unusual. However, the next morning, she found him unconscious in bed, with a mouthful of vomit. She immediately called an ambulance, but when paramedics arrived, Hendrix was no longer responsive. However, what is suspicious is that there are many contradictions in Monica's testimony. Initially, she claimed that she had been by Hendrix's side all night, but later, there were reports that she left the hotel for a few hours, leaving no one knowing exactly what happened during that time. Some paramedics who were present at the scene also revealed that Hendrix's body was covered in alcohol and his stomach was full of fluid, suggesting that he may have been forced to drink too much alcohol before he died. This led many to believe that his death was not simply an accident due to an overdose of sleeping pills. One of the most prominent theories surrounding Jimi Hendrix's death is that his manager at the time, Michael Jeffrey, was involved. Jeffrey was a powerful but controversial figure in the music industry, known for his shady contracts and controlling approach to his artists. Before his death, Hendrix was said to have been planning to terminate his contract with Jeffrey over suspicions of financial fraud. It was rumored that Jeffrey had secretly taken millions of dollars from Hendrix's earnings and did not want to lose a golden goose. In 2009, James Tappy Wright, Jeffrey's former assistant, published a book called Rock Roadie, in which he claimed that Jeffrey had confessed to him that he had arranged Jimi Hendrix's death. According to Wright, Jeffrey said he had Hendrix drink large amounts of alcohol and sleeping pills to make it look like an accident. Jeffrey is said to have admitted this in a private conversation in 1971, a year after Hendrix died. It is worth noting that Michael Jeffrey later died in a plane crash in 1973, taking with him many secrets that have never been cleared up. Another equally controversial theory is the involvement of the FBI and the US government. In the late 1960s, Hendrix was not only a musical legend, but also a countercultural icon with a strong influence on young people and the anti-war movement. He openly opposed the Vietnam War and often expressed his political views through his music, which made him a thorn in the side of the US government at that time. According to some documents that were later declassified, the FBI had a track record on Hendrix, just as they did with many other influential artists such as John Lennon and Jim Morrison. Some believe that the US government may have intervened to silence Hendrix before he could use his fame to create a stronger anti-war movement. However, there is no concrete evidence to prove the FBI's direct involvement in his death. Jimi Hendrix's death not only shocked the music world, but also helped cement a terrifying phenomenon, the 27 Club. This is the name given to talented but short-lived artists who died at the age of 27, including famous names such as Jim Morrison, The Doors, Janis Joplin, Brian Jones, The Rolling Stones, and later Kurt Cobain, Nirvana, and Amy Winehouse. This strange coincidence has many people asking, could it be that these artists, so outstanding and sensitive to life, could not withstand the pressure of fame? Although Jimi Hendrix's death remains shrouded in mystery, his legacy lives on in the music world. Legacy and influence. Jimi Hendrix's death, at the age of 27, left a void in the rock music world that can never be filled. But his legacy continues to inspire millions of fans and generations of artists. He is not only recognized as one of the greatest guitarists of all time, but also a cultural icon who reshaped the entire way electric guitars and rock music were played. Jimi Hendrix was an innovator who constantly challenged the boundaries of rock and blues. More than just a brilliant guitarist, he was a musical revolutionary who redefined the use of electronic instruments in performance and the studio. Rolling Stone magazine has repeatedly named Hendrix the greatest guitarist of all time, a title that is still recognized by experts and fans today. His virtuoso technique, masterful improvisation, and innovative performance style made him an irreplaceable legend. Hendrix was not only a great guitarist, but he also completely changed the way people viewed the instrument. Before Hendrix, the electric guitar was mainly an accompaniment instrument in rock and blues, but he turned it into a voice, creating melodies and sound effects that no one had heard before. Hendrix was one of the first artists to fully exploit effects such as feedback, wah-wah, a characteristic vibrato sound created by an effects pedal, and distortion. These techniques helped him create haunting, powerful, spiritual sounds that were completely new at the time. One of Hendrix's most distinctive features was that he played the guitar with his left hand, but did not reverse the strings as was the norm. Instead of buying a left-handed guitar, he used a right-handed guitar and simply flipped it upside down. This gave his playing a unique character, contributing to his signature sound that cannot be copied. Jimi Hendrix was not only a musician, but also an excellent performer. He could play the guitar with his teeth, behind his back, or even burn the guitar on stage, as in his legendary performance at the Monterey Pop Festival in 1967. Hendrix's performances were not only musical, but also visual art, leaving the audience unable to take their eyes off. Despite his early death, Jimi Hendrix left behind a legacy that continues to be celebrated for generations to come. From prestigious awards to memorials, Hendrix lives on in the hearts of his fans. Songs like Purple Haze, Voodoo Child, and All Along the Watchtower have become classics, inspiring generations of artists from Eric Clapton to Stevie Ray Vaughan to John Mayer. Despite his short career, Hendrix had a profound impact on the world of music. In 2011, he was awarded the Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award, honoring his immeasurable contributions to rock and blues music. It was a belated but well-deserved recognition for a legend who changed the face of modern music forever. Jimi Hendrix's hometown, Seattle, honored him by creating Jimi Hendrix Park, a 2-acre park located next to the Museum of Pop Culture, Mopop. The park is not only a green space, but also a place to display artwork, paintings, and stories about Hendrix's life. Designed with his music in mind, the park features soundwave-shaped walkways and a small stage for music lovers to perform. The mystery surrounding his death has been a hot topic of debate for decades. Was it just an unfortunate accident of a lonely genius? Or was there a conspiracy behind it that has never been clarified? What do you think about these theories? Please share your thoughts in the comments section below. We would love to hear from you. And don't forget to like the video